Hello, hello everyone. Welcome back. Thank you all for being here. I am Eugene Daniels, White House Correspondent and Chief Playbook Correspondent at Politico, and I'm very happy to be here with Governor Polis from Colorado. He was my member of Congress when I was in college at Colorado State University, so we have that connection. So you're going to tell me all the secrets today, I'm assuming.
There we go.
We have that
hope so.
between us. I hope so too. I want to start with a very serious question, which is you seem to hate pennies for some reason. And you told DOGE that they need to get rid of pennies.
Oddly enough, I'm a bit of an amateur coin collector and have been since I was a kid. So
Yeah,
I
pennies
really
are the
love
worst
pennies.
ones.
No, I love
Okay,
pennies. I
okay.
love pennies. But I hate government waste.
I see.
And pennies cost about 3 cents to make. Really, it would save the federal government over $200 million a year. Mm-hmm. And not to mention the environmental impact, the zinc that goes into the pennies, the electricity that's made in producing them. So it's wasteful from an environmental perspective. It's a waste of taxpayer money. And yeah, when I was in Congress, I sponsored a bill to get rid of the penny. Like most bills in Congress, didn't go anywhere. Hopeful that President Trump and DOGE can make progress in finally getting rid of the penny.
Have you talked to the White House about your penny crusade?
I've tweeted about it.
I saw the tweet.
Is that the
I saw
right
the
word?
tweet.
What, I've X'd about it?
X'd about it,
I've X'd
posted,
about it. Yeah,
put it on the
posted about
internet.
it. Yeah.
I want to get into tariffs a little bit because that's something
Sure.
that you have worked on quite a bit. You have been pretty outspoken about tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
You were also opposed President Biden's solar tariffs, for example, so you're equal opportunity there. What are the businesses in your state telling you about how they would be impacted if some of these tariffs that President Trump is talking about go through?
Tariffs are bad across the board. I'm going to talk about the economic theory of why, and then I want to talk about the harmful impacts. So, look, when two people or people in two countries or two willing parties engage in a transaction, they both leave better off. Mm-hmm. We have something, they have something, we both want what the other one has, we trade. It inherently creates value because it's two willing parties engaged in a transaction, each to their mutual benefit. By definition, they only engage in that transaction if it's to their mutual benefit. So trade is wonderful. Trade is great. Trade increases the prosperity of both parties. Tariffs are damaging, and a lot is talked about. Of course, they raise the price of every product that's consumer-facing by the amount of the tariff. It costs that much more. It's inflationary. But it also would destroy American manufacturing because when I talk to manufacturers in Colorado, many components and parts are sourced across the world in a global supply chain. And a lot of the companies that invest in capital for manufacturing would move those factories overseas if they face tariffs on importing the components that they need to the United States. It would hurt our farmers and ranchers. Colorado's largest export is beef. And it would hurt Colorado producers of nearly every product across the board. So consumers, yes, it hurts, but it also would devastate manufacturing and it would decrease not just American wealth, but global wealth.
Have you tried to talk to the Trump administration about this? Because they have the exact opposite economic theory about the impacts of tariffs.
Well, like any American,
But you're a governor, not just American. You got some power.
Well, I hope so. I don't control tariffs. We'd get rid of them if we did. We've been very active, like many governors have, in foreign investment and trade. I've gone on several trade missions. I know my fellow governors have, and that becomes a lot harder if there are these barriers to trade that our own administration puts in place. I mean, in many ways, tariffs would just be like us stabbing ourselves and stabbing our own economy, a self-inflicted wound that would raise prices, increase inflation, and destroy jobs.
Yeah. You talked about these trade missions. You've gone on, lots of governors do those kinds of things, but what role do governors have to navigate the trade world? What are the tools that you guys have to, if these tariffs do start to come in, to protect the people in your
Well,
state?
I wish we had more. They're the prerogative of the federal government. I mean, unless there's some new policy that gives us, tariff-free zones or the ability to do something along those lines. Products made in Colorado, products made in Iowa, products made in Texas, they're all American. And so when there's reciprocal tariffs that are put on those products in foreign markets, it'll destroy jobs in our states, and there's not much the governors can do about that.
So you can't really work around the trade policies and try to build bridges to foreign countries, and not physical bridges. That would take a lot more
We do
money
our
than you
best
have.
to build the bridges, but the money is where the rubber meets the road, and if it's prohibitive tariffs that prevent transactions from occurring and damage the markets for made in America and grown in America products, there's nothing that governors can do to open those markets.
I want to move to immigration. Your state has become a flashpoint for immigration, but even before this new administration came in, you have welcomed the federal authorities into the state to, quote, detain and deport dangerous criminals and to stop the, quote, illegal flow of guns and drugs. But there's also been, it seems, kind of misinformation around some of the apartment complexes, which ones have undocumented immigrants, people who are documented getting pulled into those things. How do you strike that balance as a governor of that state?
Well, Colorado is home to immigrants from communities all over the world, and we're very excited. It adds to our economy, it adds to our prosperity, it adds to our culture. At the same time, of course, we want to apprehend and punish any criminal, whether they're fifth-generation American or whether they got here a week ago or whether they got here five years ago. If you want to commit crimes against our fellow Coloradans, we're going to find you and hold you accountable. And we appreciate federal help in doing that, for sure. We work with the FBI. We work with many federal agencies every day on keeping Colorado safer. My goal as governor is to make Colorado one of the 10 safest states, and we have some specific investments and increased criminal penalties that we've been working on over the last few years, and we're continuing that work with our legislature this session.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at now? You want number 10. Where are you at on the safest list?
We're in the middle of the pack, so okay. we're in the 20s, and we're a little lower on violent crime, a little higher on property crime. But we've made some progress. We've decreased automobile theft by over 20% in the last year.
Yeah, you talked about wanting to get the criminals, that any criminal in the United States or in Colorado, but the Trump administration has said they view criminal undocumented immigrants as someone who just came over here. They don't have to commit a violent crime. They don't have to break into a car. Do you agree with them, or are they wrong there?
Well, we're responsible for state law, and obviously civil violations are not criminal violations under state law. So we're concerned with things: are they engaged in theft? Is there abuse or homicide? Those kinds of things. Drug dealing. Those would be state offenses that we would want any help in apprehending criminals who engage in those things.
So you don't see an undocumented person in your state automatically as a criminal?
Well, unless they violate any state laws.
Right.
Again, we care about who violates our laws, whether they're new to our state or as I said, whether their families have been there for 5 generations. It doesn't matter. If they violate our laws, we're going to hold them accountable. Yeah. You were sent a letter from Republicans in Congress from your state that essentially said if you were serious about curbing illegal immigration to your state, you would push the state legislature to repeal laws that restrict state and local governments and law enforcement from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. Would you push the Democrats in your legislature to do that? Look, I think our laws reflect, by and large, the laws we need to make Colorado one of the 10 safest states. We're pushing for additional criminal penalties in some areas, like stolen guns. But with regards to cooperation with federal authorities, absolutely. On criminal matters, we fully cooperate with federal authorities.
But should the laws be changed?
Well, they allow for that, and they encourage that. What we don't want is we don't want the federal government to co-opt our local law enforcement for their purposes rather than for our purposes. We need to keep them focused on preventing crime and keeping the public safe. They're not designed to become, nor should they become, an extension of the federal government.
Yeah. Are there red lines for you when it comes to the federal authorities coming into your state when it comes to immigration? Are there things you just won't accept?
Well, again, we have a strong collaborative relationship with all the federal enforcement agencies, whether it's FBI, DHS, ICE. They are a part of keeping Colorado safe. I would add a small to medium part. The role of the local police, the role of local sheriff's departments is even more critical, but especially on large interstate investigations, on major drug rings, on major gang activity. The federal government really provides additional resources that some of our local law enforcement agencies can really find helpful in making Colorado safer.
Yeah. But are there any red lines that you would not accept from the federal government coming into your state?
Well, again, we fully cooperate in all criminal matters. If they're doing things that aren't criminal, first of all, I'm not sure what they're doing because that's not their charge, but they don't get the same cooperation, and we don't want to distract our local law enforcement from going after criminals and keeping people safe. So they're not generally going to cooperate on non-criminal matters, and we hope that that's not what they're pursuing, because we have, like most states, we have serious crime, and we need to keep our limited law enforcement resources focused on keeping Coloradans safe.
Yeah. You started busing undocumented migrants who came to your state to New York or Chicago to get, saying that that's where they wanted to be, and you were trying to help that. You eventually stopped once other mayors, when mayors said, please, this is too much. How do you process this all under kind of the Trump
Well, you know,
administration?
I think we were also, I would add, to be fair, we were also subject to having people bus to us from Texas. So they were busing
But you
them
were the
to us.
Democrat that continued.
And then we found that these were people that didn't want to be, they didn't want to be in our state. So we said, where are you going? And we helped them get there. And you know, it was a large movement of people, and a lot of people were. If you go north from Texas, you know, Denver's going to be your first major city. So a lot of people came through, and some stayed for a few days, and some stayed for weeks, and obviously some chose to make Colorado their home.
I want to move to kind of this idea that I've heard a lot from both people here and in the States, that the Democratic resistance to the Trump administration lies on the shoulders of yours and Andy Beshear and other Democratic governors. They don't have a lot of power here, Democrats in Washington, D.C. But there seems to be, for you, places that you want to work with Donald Trump, or see that there's places of compatibility there. What are those?
Well, one of the ones that I know we're exploring as governors is permitting reform. And obviously we welcome, just as President Biden supported permitting reform and wasn't ultimately able to get a major package through. He did some things through his executive actions. We're hopeful President Trump continues in that vein to make it easier to build and get things done, from rail and highway to renewable energy projects and energy transmission, especially on public lands, which is a big deal in the West. About 36% of our state is owned by the federal government. It's even higher in Nevada and Utah. But also with regards to the NEPA process for projects that occur on private land.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a relationship with President Trump? Have you talked to him before?
Of course. Well, he was president. First of all, I served in Congress when he was president for 2 years, and I served as governor when he was president the first time around. My only discussion with him since being elected this time is to call and congratulate him, which I did after the election.
Mm-hmm. Where are the places that you have concerns about what the Trump administration has been doing or wants to do?
Well, you touched on one, and that's tariffs.
Yeah.
It would be devastating to the American economy, increase inflation, destroy American manufacturing, hurt American farmers and ranchers, and it would be an enormous self-inflicted wound. I'm hopeful that President Trump finds an off-ramp. I'm hopeful that it's a negotiating tactic, and that if we end in a place with less tariffs rather than more, that will ultimately benefit the American people and the American economy.
Anything other than tariffs?
Well, we look forward to seeing what their plans are in different areas. I'm sure there'll be others. Obviously, this whole funding slowdown and sloppy cutoff was scary for a while, because and there's still several accounts that haven't been turned on, and these are generally contracts that are out there. We're all for increasing government efficiency and getting a better work product for less money. But usually the best way not to do that is not to just instantly cut it off. It's to figure out how to change it to make it work better.
You've also been outspoken about the 14th Amendment repeal executive order that he tried to sign as well.
Well, that was illegal, unconstitutional. The courts have ruled accordingly. Obviously, the clear language of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution is that if you're born here, you are, in fact, an American citizen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to get to DOGE a little bit. You told Chuck Todd that you didn't think Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy, who's no longer involved in DOGE, had the political sophistication to cut spending. We've had a month of Elon Musk and DOGE firing and dealing and working their way through the federal government. How are they doing?
Well, you know, my vantage point is the states. I'd probably know more about it if I was still here in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously,
you get the emails.
I get the emails.
Get
no,
the
I'm not on.
emails.
I'm not on their email list.
You don't get our emails. We send a lot of emails about DOGE now.
No, I thought everybody unsubscribed from
She
you
looked there.
guys.
She's like, yeah.
Isn't that the big thing DOGE found? Is everybody subscribed to Politico and they made them cancel?
No, people love
subscriptions?
Politico. No, they love Politico.
I don't know.
Everyone loves Politico.
They canceled a lot of
Wing Playbook.
a lot of subscriptions.
But we're still standing and everyone's still subscribing, so we're not worried.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, what we need to see is kind of what they're finding and what they're doing. There's a lot of waste at federal agencies, and I applaud any effort to root that out. And I think a better way to do it would be kind of more zero-based budgeting. Say, what is it that we need to accomplish with this agency? A, do we even need to accomplish it anymore, or is it counterproductive? B, if we do need to accomplish it, pretend it doesn't exist. How do you create the most efficient possible system to do that for the least money and to do it the best way from the ground up? And then kind of juxtapose and replace the old with the new. The way that they seem to be doing it is just sort of tearing down the old without necessarily having a more efficient way of doing it. So, you know, not necessarily the best way to get a better outcome for less money.
Yeah. For those like Governor Polis who care about DOGE but maybe aren't getting the emails, Politico.com/West Wing. We're launching a new DOGE-focused West Wing playbook, so get on it. I'll send it to you.
I would like to be on
yeah,
that.
Please do. Please do.
We want to learn from those efforts of the states about how we can make state government more efficient. This has been a drive of mine since I've been in office. So I recently repealed 208 old executive orders. We got rid of them off the books. We have a similar effort to get rid of unnecessary rules and regulations through our legislature. This has been kind of work that I've been focused on since I've been governor. And we want to learn, of course, from the federal partners. And I would add that we, at the state level, if the federal government makes compliance easier in certain areas, we could cut, too. So we literally have employees that just sit there to comply with federal requirements. Yeah. So I'd love to find a way where if they make the federal compliance requirements easier, we can then downsize the state people that are simply filing federal paperwork as their entire jobs.
Yeah, yeah. In November, you sent out a long tweet about why you thought, or post, ex-post, about why you thought RFK Jr. was a great pick for HHS.
So what was?
RFK
Yes.
Jr. was a great
That's
pick
Secretary
for HHS.
Kennedy to you.
Secretary. Yes, Secretary Kennedy, correct. And to you as well,
and
actually.
To me, Secretary.
How it seemed like you backtracked maybe a little bit on that after some blowback.
Well, I didn't back up. I mean, some people thought it somehow meant that I agree with them on some of the nutty stuff he believes. I don't. I'm obviously pro-vaccine. My kids are vaccinated. I am. I'm excited because he's going to shake up HHS and really focus on chronic disease prevention, human health. I mean, this is something that Democrats have been focused for in a while. I've never seen Republicans take an interest in it. I think RFK would have been a great member of a Democratic administration. Obviously, I supported Kamala Harris. I hope he's not too controlled by Republican special interests. But they need to let him go to really focus on the health of the American people. I mean, diet and nutrition affect so much, whether it's diabetes, whether it's what pregnant mothers eat, affecting the intelligence of their kids and the prospects of their kids. And he said that's going to be his focus. I take him at his word. Obviously, I would oppose if he in any way interferes with people's ability to protect themselves from deadly diseases. I would be among the first to criticize that.
Okay. We'll probably get a social post. You and Governor Pritzker in Illinois are at the front of something called Governors Safeguarding Democracy. You have former Republican governors on the advisory board of that, but no sitting GOP office holders. Why is that?
Well, I think it's hard, you know, politics. I mean, for people that are currently elected officials to do that, we'd love, and we welcome, by the way, Republican governors to join our efforts to safeguard our democracy. But I think the fact that we have some former Republican governors does speak a lot to the credibility of this work. Just making making separation of powers, judicial, executive, legislative authority, free and fair elections, all these basic values and tenets that are now more important than ever before. Governors are very much in the forefront of standing up and protecting.
Yeah. What's the outreach been to the GOP office holders, the folks that are actually governors now, and trying to get them on board? And what have they said to you about saying, no, we're good?
Well, I think, again, you'd have to talk to different Republican governors. I mean, I think that governors across the board respect our democracy. They might express that in different ways, but there's times when that takes court actions. There's times when that takes media and public relations campaigns. There's times when it takes state-level policy in the absence of federal policy to protect our rights as Americans.
Yeah. Pritzker yesterday in his State of the State says some things I'm interested, because you guys work together on democracy, what you thought of it. He said, quote, "I do not invoke the specter of Nazis lightly, but I know the history intimately. Here's what I've learned. The root that tears apart your house's foundation begins as a seed of distrust and hate and blame. The seed that grew into a dictatorship in Europe a lifetime ago didn't arrive overnight. The authoritarian playbook is laid bare. They point to a group of people who don't look like you and tell you to blame them for your problems. He seems to be making a comparison there with the Trump administration almost explicitly, and kind of what happened with Nazis. And I'm curious if you agree with him.
I didn't hear the speech, and I don't know the context of that. It certainly sounds very poetic there, the way he expressed that. I mean, I would say, of course, I always speak out against trying to divide Americans based on anything. I mean, a president, a governor should unite people. I mean, we love everybody. In Colorado, we call it a Colorado for all. Doesn't matter your race, your faith, who you are, who you love. I mean, there's a place for everybody in our state, and I believe in our nation. And I think a president that speaks to those higher angels of inclusion and support for everybody and everybody undertaking the great journey of life is somebody that could be a successful president. And I would push back to any president that tries to divide Americans or get people to scapegoat our fellow countrymen for the problems that they might be facing in their own lives.
Yeah. He said, "I'm watching with a foreboding dread what is happening in our country right now." Are you watching with a foreboding dread?
Well, I prefer to watch with hope. I think we all should be hopeful about the future of our country, hopeful that our best days are still ahead of us rather than behind us, hopeful that the arc of justice will continue to bend towards justice. And look, there's always a pendulum that swings back and forth, but America is a much more inclusive, supportive place for everybody than it was in prior times in our history. Yeah. I mean, look at how hard it would have been to be a woman seeking a professional career in the 1950s. Think of how hard it was to be a gay or lesbian American in the 80s or 90s. You couldn't even get married. So we're making a lot of progress for all Americans, and that in no way is to the detriment of anybody. It's to the betterment of everybody.
Yeah. That Colorado 300 days of sunshine really got you feeling hopeful.
300 days of sunshine.
Yesterday, President Trump and his team, even from the White House official account, sent out a picture of him as a king. And I'm curious what you thought about that.
Well,
and if you didn't see it, I have it right here for you,
yeah,
so you can't say that.
I suspect it was AI generated.
Well. Yes, it was AI generated.
I
yes.
think. Kings are not popular in the United States.
Yeah.
We rebelled against King George. It's our story we tell every 4th of July. So that's not a very well-advised thing to do. I mean, I can see political opponents of mine in Colorado often portray me as a king, but those are political opponents. If I would be, it would be a self-inflicted wound if I were to do it myself. So America's a country that values democracy, Republicans, Democrats, independents, and you know, we don't have nobility or royalty, and most Americans are very proud of that fact, that all Americans are created equal under the law, and we do not support any form of monarchy.
Yeah, well, we do have Beyonce, so that is important to note there. I want to get to, thank you for the clap. I want to get to kind of your party and where you guys are right now. And I'm curious if you think that, and I don't want to relitigate 2024 over and over and over again, but do you believe that the Democratic Party has a policy problem or a PR problem?
Well, you know, that's a good question. We can talk about that for a while. I mean, policy, there's Democrats that are all over the place on policy. I mean, I don't expect that I would agree with, you know, a room of Democrats on policy. Everybody would have their own ideas. I mean, I think make your case and convince others and work to, in our state, you know, our focus has been lowering taxes, reducing regulation, improving our schools. It's been successful. Our economy is doing great. On communications, I don't know, again, Democrats is a big thing. I mean, I think many Democrats should do a better job communicating in new forms of social media and podcasts, and I certainly do. I covered my candidacy for governor on Reddit. I mean, that's just, I had to learn what conventional media was, Eugene. I had no idea what the networks were or anything, because that's where I live, online. And so, but Democrats should do a better job doing that for sure.
Yeah, but when you think about why, not why 2024 you guys lost, but why since then, when you talk to Democrats and Republicans, they're saying this party seems kind of listless and that it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Do you believe that that's
Well, I think
true?
Democrats are upset that we didn't win.
Just a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, that's you know, that's the main thing. So it's you know, a lot of Monday night quarterbacking, right? I mean, you didn't win, and you're engaged in a deep analysis of what you could do better next time.
Yeah, yeah. 2028 is right around the corner. You're running for president, I assume?
I don't think so.
Okay, I just wanted to try a new way to see if you would answer.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to see if you would do it. But you are term limited, so you can't run for governor of Colorado again. Are you open to running for president?
Well, I still have 2 more years doing this job, so
Yeah.
I'm very excited to run through the gates. We're doing some great work in Colorado, making Colorado safer and making housing more affordable is our other big priority, along with continuing to deliver on free universal preschool, which we're now in our 2nd year of.
Yeah. But are you open to running for president?
I don't have any plans to even think about that,
Okay.
Eugene. I'm really focused on the job that I have.
Yeah. So you're taking it off the table.
It wasn't even on the table.
Okay. I just breaking news to people. But the party does seem like it's kind of ripe for your style of more nuanced politics, right? You talked about working with President Trump on some things and fighting against him on others. If you had to describe a human who you think should be at the top of the ticket, what kind of Democrat would you be interested in voting for in 2020?
I think just somebody that speaks to the needs and the aspirations of the American people and focuses on issues that matter around the kitchen table, reducing costs, reducing unnecessary government rules and regulations, making government more efficient, restoring America's leadership role here and abroad, which is looking at worrisome foreign policies of this president. So a president that focuses, like a President Obama and President Clinton, on expanding markets for made in America and growing in America products, reducing tariffs, free trade. I mean, these are traditional principles that successful Democratic presidents have been fully behind and have led to tremendous prosperity gains for the American people. And of course, that's what we need to do, not only to win, but to govern effectively and to increase the wealth and prosperity of the American people.
Yeah. Last question before I get in trouble with the producers back there. What keeps you up at night?
Well, I sleep pretty well.
Good for
a
you.
long day's work, being governor. It's a great, exhausting job, and you know, I worry about the world situation. I mean, obviously, tariffs is not just a American thing; it sets off a global trade war to the detriment of everybody. So, you know, it's everybody hurting themselves and their economy, and it could lead not only to a reduction in economic growth, but actually shrinkage of the global economy, increased poverty, and decreased ability to meet the needs of people across the world.
All right. Governor Polis, thank you for your time, and I look forward to having a conversation in 2 years when you are done being governor and you're talking about maybe running for president.
Well, are you going to run for president, Eugene?
Oh, well, no, you don't want
Are
that.
you taking it off the table?
Off the table, off the table. I'm sending the table out. The table's gone too. There's no tables. Absolutely not. Governor, thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you as well. Good to see you as well.